So, yeah, let's just start to settle in. And as many of you perhaps might these days, I've learned to begin with an honoring of the land on which I stand. So I am on Duwamish land, part of the Coast Salish people of the Northwest, so these are unceded territories, and they were stewards of this land for many centuries. And I just want to acknowledge that. And if you don't know the land that you're on, it's really interesting. When I have a chance later, I'll put in the chat a wonderful app where you can find out and learn more about the land you are on and who the stewards of that land have been and are, and hopefully will be allowed to be even more so, enabled to be. Okay, so we want to start to connect our hearts and our heads and our bodies. That's really the very simple but radical work of compassionate listening. And we try to follow a practice, we call it slowing down to the speed of wisdom. So in a moment, we'll start by settling in, and I'll read a poem, and then there'll be silence when you can listen in to yourself and what arises, and start to reflect on your own intention. Something brought you here today, and I'm so thrilled. As you look around, by the end of our short little time, will feel a lot of connection. We'll have formed community, what Martin Luther King called beloved community, which is so essential for our growth and our learning and our capacity to bring about the world we all want. So world change happens, we believe, from the inside out. So we're going to start with that inside and in the presence of our fellow learners and teachers. May the work we each do and we do together today be of benefit to ourselves, to our families, to our community, to each other. We like to take the time to light a candle because we know we're seeking to bring more light within ourselves and each other. And that's sort of marking now. We're into this more really sacred circle. And we know we shall be known by the ones we meet and are with. So this poem I love because it was written around 500 BC. So humans have been gathering with the questions we come with for a very long time. So again, I'm going to read it, and then we'll go into silence. When we're done with silence, I'll bring my gong. And as you do go into the silence, you can ponder your intention or quality that you seek to bring. So this is by Lao Tzu. Always we hope someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one else has the answer. No other place will be better. And it has already turned out. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. There's no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from a window. Rather, abide at the center of your being. For the more you leave it, the less you learn. Search your heart and see. The way to do is to be. In this silence, ask your heart, what is an intention? What quality are you hoping to cultivate in yourself? What is the quality that brought you here today? Wow, what an amazing group. And you can already hear the wisdom from everyone and the yearnings of our hearts that we already have, but we want to cultivate more of our kindness, suspending judgment, our ease, feeling centered, deepening our capacity. It is what we call a practice. So here we are to do just a little practice, and hopefully it will spur us on to continue because there is no magic wand. I love that I get to teach this because that means I need to practice and I get to. And I'm so happy today to be supported by my dear friend and colleague, Jackie Foster. So she's going to be assisting me today. And as I mentioned, Elizabeth is one of our facilitators as well. So it's beautiful. We have a lot of compassionate listeners, and I happen to be a dear friend of Denise's. And it sounds like Annie, we've met before. And I'm so glad to meet all of you today. So, my challenge is always, of course, I would like to have hours with you. So, this is a taste. So, we do kind of just push through a lot to give you the landscape of compassionate listening and a few little experiences. And then at the end, we'll talk about if you would like to continue your exploration. Um, so, I will share my screen right now. And we know how important it is to create, as a couple of you mentioned that, the container, the safe space, a comfort, not a safe, a courageous space. So these are our guidelines for creating that. And they're really aspirations. And we'll all just commit to trying to do our best for these agreements. And Jackie's going to share those for us.
So as we create this courageous space, we first honor the inherent dignity and equality of all who are here. We welcome difference. That is, we engage diverse communication styles and emotions and worldviews. Stay present, engage and re-engage. Take risks, lean into discomfort and non-closure. Honor courage and vulnerability. Be open to ambiguity. Maintain confidentiality. Personal stories that we share here stay here. Notice your bias, privilege, what activates you. Respect and share time, share the air as we speak. Be mindful of collective and self-care. Share responsibility and accountability. Ask for consent. Own your intentions and your impact. Even with great intentions, we can cause harm. Hear the impact, hear the intentions. As Susan said, slow down to the speed of wisdom. Practice silence. Interpret harm with compassion. Interrupt harm with compassion. Invite dialogue. Repair harm without shame or blame. And finally, speak from your own experience and heart. Use I statements when describing your experiences, your thoughts, your feelings.
Great. Thank you, Jackie. So are there any questions? Do those pretty much make sense? And then I would say, are you willing to give it a try to the best of your ability, knowing none of us is perfect and we're all here to learn and help each other? That's why we include things like if I say something that I don't even realize is upsetting or harmful to someone, please let me know, because then I can learn. But we will call each other in and help each and lift each other up. So that's part of our work. That's courageous speaking from the heart. So can I just see you kind of give a thumbs up or an okay twinkle hand, something that indicates you're willing to, or thumbs up? Yeah, that's great. Very important. And then if we were, gathering for a difficult situation and we have these, and then something happens in the group, one of the reasons we do this, so it's one of our tools, is we can then say, let's stop for a moment and remind ourselves of our guidelines. And we can go back and have that discussion rather than saying, Jackie, do you realize you just whatever, so it becomes not personal, but our collective, what we want to develop together. So thank you very much for that. And now I'm going to give us a brief introduction and overview to the model. What is it anyway? So what is compassion? Think to yourself for a moment. What is compassion? And you're always welcome, by the way, if you like. I'm such an extrovert. I often want to be in conversation, and we don't always have time to hear everything, but you're willing to put whatever you want in the chat. Okay. But I'll share the definition that we often consider, that compassion, it is a sense of shared suffering. In fact, the Dalai Lama has said, without suffering, there can be no compassion. So that our suffering is a teacher of our heart. But it's not just that sense of shared compassion. It has to be combined with a desire to alleviate or reduce that suffering in our families, in our communities, in our world. So it's a call. It's really a call. It's a beautiful part of our humanity. So compassionate listening seeks to cultivate that capacity and really humanize our hearts. So I know you're thinking, what the heck is that? And I have an artist friend that's going to soon come up with a much better sketch. What that's meant to be is a flower and each of us is a petal in the flower. Each of us totally unique and different, but we are one flower. It's that great mystery of oneness and total uniqueness, right? Each blade of grass is different, and yet all blades of grass. So this is the basis that helps us get to our capacity of compassionate listening. If we really get that we are Thich Nhat Hanh says interbeingness. And when we think of what the physicists teach us about the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, we're literally all made of stardust, all the same kinds of molecules. We're breathing the air you're breathing now, I have breathed. We are all connected. We're inner beings. So that's kind of the underlying basis. And when we really feel that, then of course we're going to have compassion, because it's like we're all family. Of course, that's a little difficult, so we might feel it more in our own small circles, but that's the underpinning. The challenge, though, especially in Western society, that I take most of us here, I believe, we're at least living in, if not grown up in, it's very individualistic, and we experience ourselves as separate. In fact, individuation is an important part of what is thought of as mental health in the Western model. So we think we're totally separate, and we forget that we are connected. And the problem is we even get separated from our own heart. So a lot of our work is to reconnect us to our core essence. So we really believe at the core of each of us, who we really are is open-hearted, full-hearted, strong-hearted, clear-hearted. Those are the words I learned from Angeles Arian, wonderful teacher. So when our hearts aren't that way, they get closed or just kind of empty or just weak or fuzzy, we've lost connection with our core essence. So that's the first most important part of compassionate listening from the inside out, is reconnecting to that beautiful core essence. I love these pictures because, first of all, don't they just bring a smile and joy to your face? And really, that's, I just love those faces, but there is that in you when we feel connected to our heart and full of joy, even if we're upset, but we're wholehearted about it. So, this is who we really are. And when we're there, think for you, think of a moment when you've been really full hearted, open hearted. It could even be in full grief. I know, probably as many of you, have lost beloveds. And there's something very opening and pure about even grief. There's connectedness, joy, awe, curiosity, wonder, aliveness, all of those things. I don't know, maybe there's other qualities. Feel free to put in the chat any qualities you feel when you're really in that heart and your heart is strong and full and clear and open. Yeah. I think for me, it's a lot. It's curiosity, many of the things you mentioned today that you're seeking. But because we live this human mortal life, things happen to us and they shut us down. We get wounded, we get hurt. Some of them go in very early and very deep, and we call those our core wounds. Like, I'm not good enough, I don't belong here, I'm not welcomed, I'm not acceptable. There's judgments or trauma, hurt, loneliness, violence. Even if we're gifted and had a beautiful, loving family, we do get wounded. A lot of it's the way we take things in and think about them. And then, of course, there's all the wounding in our world, all the isms, the racism, the sexism, the ageism, lookism, able-bodiedism. It's just so many places that we get wounded. There's injustice and poverty. So these things they just hurt our heart, and it builds like bricks around our heart because we're very tender and we want to protect ourselves, right? So we contract our hearts, and each of those wounds is like a brick, and the stories we keep about them kind of set that in, like the mortar sets bricks, right? Can you relate to this? Yeah, in your own life. So we need to soften that mortar, not by rejecting, but by offering compassion and tenderness to our own wounds, and to be with them, to move towards them, to be gentle towards them. And we know that those wounds lead us to another layer of protection. Because I'm so tender, okay, I don't want to get hurt. That wouldn't make sense, would it? So I create various protective strategies. Some of those could be my personality. Maybe you learn to be the clown and you have a lot of humor, or always have an answer. I know that was one of my strategies. I had to be precocious to show up in my family. I was the little sister, right? So we develop different strategies. Or we find we tend to get into fight where we are arguing or blaming if you just didn't see it this way, or we get very defensive or just deny. We might just leave, flee, withdraw, literally or energetically, freeze and shut down. For me, that's so much what I do, is this numbness. And numbness isn't a nothingness. Numbness is a presence that we need to be with and listen to and explore and even hold tenderly. Maybe we clam up, disconnect. All, can you notice what is your, you might want to think about what is your usual strategy. We each have our patterns. Um, and I think, again, we don't want to demonize or other them, just like we don't want to other each other. Those strategies made sense. They helped you, they protected you, especially because so much of this happens when we're very young and tender. So be gentle. How this all ends up being a map, really, of our compassionate listening is to see, kind of imagine in this figurative way, each of us has this construction, this anatomy, this geography. At our core, who we really are is that beautiful, pure essence. We're longing to be loving and kind and compassionate. And in fact, when I look and see each other and see that little 4-year-old or 2-year-old inside of each of you, I can see that. And that's how we want to approach each other. Compassionate listening is going from my core essence to yours, building that golden bridge. And of course, the first key is I have to be able to reach my own heart and pure essence. And then I have to listen beneath your protective strategies and your anger or your hurt, all the way to that pure core. So that is our, I'm going to just stop the share for a minute because I always feel like, where are you? And I'm talking so much. Is this making sense? Are you relating to how that little core essence with the wounds and the protective strategies around it lives inside of you, and how so much of our communication is in fact from my protective defense to your defense, or maybe to your wound, and rarely am I coming from my heart, and rarely am I listening beneath all your prickliness or whateverness to your heart. But that's what we aim to do. So the way to our heart is our compassionate listening, and we have 5 core practices, we call them. The first is to cultivate compassion. And what's so beautiful is we actually can do that. We can grow more compassion through gratitude and appreciation and joy. Just even right now, look around, because you're all probably in some relatively safe environment, maybe you're home. Look around and notice something that really touches your heart. It might be a memory of something, a relic, a photo, and just give some appreciation, or just that, wow, we have a roof over our head. Right now, we are safe from harm. Right now, we're in a beautiful circle. So that's all medicine for our heart, especially if you savor that moment of joy or appreciation or gratitude. So you can't just say, oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's good. That's no, I've got to like feel it, because we know there's a neurophysiology that it releases different endorphins and chemicals and oxytocin in our body. And the more we notice these positive things and give ourselves those little micro moments of joy and appreciation, famous neurophysiologist believes that is actually what love is, the molecules of love, those moments. And the more we savor those for maybe 20 seconds, we start to attract more. Okay. So there's many practices, and we'll do one in a little while, to cultivate compassion. We have to fill that cup so it can give ourselves compassion and then spill out to the world. Once we have a little compassion, so we have some capacity, now I have an ability to have a more perspective, and we call it developing the fair witness. It's certainly very akin to mindfulness. I like to think of it as going to the balcony, my wonderful mediation teacher, William Ury, says, go to the balcony, get a bird's eye view. So instead of being right in the middle of the stage of the conflict you're in, go up and say, oh, yeah, there I am. There's Susan and her beloved sisters at it again, right? I know that pattern. So I can have a little space, and that gives me more choicefulness rather than being right in it. So that we have many practices managing our triggers. We'll do a little with that today. And as I calm and center myself, which I know for several of you, that was the practice you especially wanted. Now I have space to be respectful of myself. Remember the dignity of us all, my own as well as the other. So we develop these skills of respect. I don't like to think of it so much as boundaries as a healthy membrane, like the cell of our body. It lets everything that's good in, but it does not take in what's toxic. So we learn that cellular wisdom of what's okay and what's not okay. And with this practice, we talk about not getting pulled into the drama triangle, where I either feel like a victim, which means somebody's got to be the perpetrator, or I'm so upset and angry that I am the perpetrator and making someone feel like a victim, or I jump in as that rescuer. So we won't be doing that today, but that's one of our core practices that we spend a lot of time on, recognizing and not going into that triangle. As we've cultivated all this, now we're able to listen with the heart. We're kind of centered, we have some compassion. I'm not othering you, I'm seeing you as whole and complete. I can listen from my heart to yours. And knowing that I'm also listening to my own heart and speaking what is there with wisdom, with an intention of connection and healing. So that's the most important part of compassionate listening, is our intention to connect and to heal, to come into our wholeness. Since we're all interbeings, the more it's like Ubuntu, you are, therefore I am. Namaste. I see the holy wise one in you from mine to yours. So all of that is what we're after. So what is compassionate listening? It's a personal practice. So I need to commit to myself that I'm going to continuously cultivate and work on these things, knowing I'll never be perfect. One of my favorite sayings is from Sri Aurobindo, a great Indian teacher from India. By our stumbling, we are perfected. By our stumbling, we are perfected. So fine, I didn't do it, did not go the way I wanted it to. Can I not beat myself up about it? Like, oh, why didn't I? But just, next time. And I'll imagine how I will do it. So that's my personal practice. I need to really think through my days. How am I doing? Did I use the practices? And yes, there's a set of skills. So all of these have skills to them. And so the good news is you can cultivate it and learn it and develop it and get better at it and deeper at it, but you gotta practice, right? And I think you need support. We can't do this alone. We need each other. If any of you are Buddhists, they talk about the Sangha, the community, and we as humans really, that is where we can transform, because these are interpersonal skills. We need each other. Also, many of the processes we use are very powerful ways to help a community or even a relationship that's in conflict, to transform it. And how it started initially is it's also a healing gift. So we will often just offer a listening session to someone who's really hurting, perhaps a marginalized person, or just someone who just clearly needs to be heard, and we'll actually create a listening session. And that's that's how our work started when we originally were the Middle East Citizen Diplomacy Project, and we took I'm going to stop sharing again here. And we took groups to the Middle East and listened to all sides. Thought that would help heal. And then we realized, oh my God, we do not know how to do this. We were getting so triggered. So it took many years of work and development until we now have these tools. And now we find, yes, we can do it when we train and practice and show up as warriors of the heart, with these skills and intentions and help each other um, to do that. So that's kind of the structure, the model, the practices, which are easy to say and a lifetime continuous road to cultivate. So any reactions or questions or thoughts from anyone? I see there's some talk in the chat, yeah, about numbness, and that Annie was saying she identifies it as contentedness. So that's an interesting, that would just be an inquiry. Am I content or am I numb? And what am I feeling? Is my heart just locked and at least not broken, or is it open and receptive? So there's no right answer. It's an inquiry of our relationship. I must say, I've really been learning to listen to my heart, and I, I almost have this like cartoon. I see my heart, and some days it's just like flat on the ground, and other days it's ready to bounce and be happy, and it has different textures and colors. I think however that might not make any sense for you, and it doesn't need to, but what is your way of connecting and listening to your heart to know what state it's in and to be with it kindly? Well, now we have the framework. Let's start to dive in and have some experiences. Okay. So I think because we really have to start from the inside out, I'm going to do a little talking meditation experience of self-compassion, cultivating self-compassion. So I don't know about you, but that can be really hard. It's gotten much easier, I must say. I would have said 10 years ago, I was just so hard on myself and my little voice. Oh, Susan, you're such an idiot. It's like, that voice is just not there now. I've really retrained it to be, okay, honey, it's all right. We'll get through this. Or, you live and learn. Or as I said, you're stumbling, honey, and you're getting so perfected. All right. So we really need to cultivate that. So, excuse me. So get yourself comfortable in your chair. And I just want to acknowledge many of my teachers that I've just mishmashed, or whatever you call it, merged a whole bunch of different things into this from many teachers, including, I'll come to the name later because it just left my mind. Jamal. He's an imam here in the Seattle area, a wonderful teacher, one of the, what do they call themselves? The three amigos, a wonderful rabbi, imam, and minister who do interfaith work. Okay, so get really comfortable in your chair. And start to follow your breath. That's the way in. Feel the coolness of the air as you breathe in, and the warmth as you breathe out. And imagine following that, the miraculous systems of your body that are going on all the time to support you in your life. This breath, like the ocean, always there for you since the moment you were born. Oxygen going to every cell of your body. And then removing what's not needed What a miracle. Feel appreciation and awe for your body. Notice your feet on the floor. For most of us, those feet have been able to take us where we want to go, many miles, many kilometers. Thank you, feet. And your hands, what miracles they have created. Meals you've prepared, faces you've caressed, letters you've written. Maybe you've created art. Thank you, hands. Feel a smile come into your face as you just feel the wonder and offer gratitude to your body. Now notice your heart. You might want to place one or even both hands on your heart. Feel it beating, that beat, that steady heartbeat that's been there even before you were born. Precious, strong, courageous heart. And now imagine yourself as that precious little toddler with your adorable smile and beautiful heart. Imagine holding yourself tenderly as a loving adult would hold a child. Give yourself love and compassion and kindness. Call to yourself the name of beloved, dear one, sister, brother, sweetheart. For me, it's Susala, Susanita. Give yourself loving kindness and deep appreciation. Be with the feelings like waves through your body of loving kindness and compassion. And keeping this feeling, when you're ready, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come present to this beloved circle. How was that? Good. It can bring tears for me. We can be so tender for ourselves. So that's a practice, very fundamental It's not self-indulgent. In fact, I'm going to be offering a class next month on self-care and self-compassion. It's essential if we're going to do the work that is needed in our world. So, yeah. Okay. So if there's anything that needs to be said, or I'll start to lead us into an important practice where you'll actually get to listen to each other. So what's going to happen is you'll have 3 minutes as a speaker. Obviously, one of you will be 3 minutes as the listener, right? And then I'll say pause and recenter and switch. And so then the person who is the speaker becomes the listener becomes the speaker. Does that make sense? I'll also so you're going to have 3 minutes, just 3 minutes, you may think, or 3 minutes. Time is very subjective, but just use this, your 3 minutes. I will send a message like 1 more minute, just to let you know, in case you really got lost in your story, that there's and you may not ever see that. Okay. Sometimes it passes through. But at least hopefully the listener can be a little more alert to notice these messages, right? So, and then 3 minutes, stop, center, breathe, because you want to come back to yourself, and then switch. That's always important. We're slow. So it's not like, okay, your turn. No, that would not enable us to come from our heart. So in this experience, first I'm going to explain what it will be like when you're the listener. This is going to be your chance to be the world's most amazing listener. You will be fully present to your partner. And what a privilege and joy and honor to witness this person. You will just feel nurtured, nourished by them and their words, receiving openly from your heart and listening not just to their words, but the real meaning underneath, from your heart to theirs. And you will say nothing. This is actively receiving. So that also means no nonverbal communication. So I don't mean to sit there like a stone. Certainly, I mean, I know I would be nodding, just like, yes, I hear you. I'm with you. But it's not like, yeah, I know what you mean. I agree. Or, nah. So it's not that kind of communication. All right. Just receiving and being with. Does that make sense? So the world's most amazing listener. And then when it's your turn to be the speaker, first of all, you have this amazing listener, and know that this is your time. It's your 3 minutes. You do not have to be very exciting or interesting. You don't even need to make sense. You can be all mixed up and go whatever way. It's your 3 minutes. And I know you're wondering, oh, what am I going to talk about? Well, it's really what's alive in you in this moment. What's challenging for you? What is in your heart that needs to be said? So it's whatever is up for you. It's not a social, well, let me tell you about me. It's really my heart. So take a little of that courageous risking to speak more deeply from your heart. Remember, we have the agreement of confidentiality. So only your partner will know. They're not going to come back and say, oh, well, Jackie told me all about this thing. No, I could never share what it was that Jackie said. Wonderful. Welcome back. I hope it was a good experience. And I'd love to hear a little about it. So just check in with yourself. And what might you want to share with the group? Please, Terry.
Can I pee?
Terry,
Can I pee?
you're ready for your break? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, we're gonna debrief this exercise for about 5 or 10 minutes, but obviously, if you gotta leave, please just, come on back when you can. But I wanna, while this is fresh, take a couple of minutes to just share, harvest a little from this experience, and then we will go off to our break. So how was it Annie?
I really appreciated getting out of my own head and just being able to listen to Brigitte. And it was almost meditative. I was so able to tune into her with the intention of today that my brain shut up a little bit.
Beautiful, beautiful. How about for others? How was it to be that listener? I see your hand, Jessica.
Sure, I was going to say, as a speaker, knowing that the person I was with, Ruth, she wasn't listening to give me solutions, or there was no agenda. So it was just listening to listen. And so it was wonderful also to be able to listen, not having to worry about having the wisest thing to tell her or say something to make her feel better, and just the emphasis of being present and listening. It really took a burden off.
Doesn't it? I feel that too, Jessica. It's like, and it's just, it's refreshing. It's beautiful. Yeah. Other experiences as the listener, because it's also not that easy. I don't know. For some of you, it could have been a struggle. Karen.
What Annie said really resonated me, is how much it's like meditation, that whereas you have to keep bringing like when you're meditating, focus on the breath, your mind wanders off, come back to the breath. It's like, just come back to the person, because my mind kept going, oh, I relate to that, or I relate to that, and I think this and I think that, and it's like, no, okay, just gently come back.
Yeah.
And that was really good. And then there were moments when I was just really in the story, and that was wonderful.
Beautiful. Yeah, I know. For me, I think learning how much I don't listen is a big part of this learning to listen, to really notice when, oh, guess what? I am not listening. And I've learned to say to people like, you know what? I realize I can't be present right now. So, and I really want to hear what you have to say. Could we find another time? Did anyone find it was really hard to suppress the wanting to ask a question, or I know I felt that way? Yeah, it's work. So it's good to realize, wow, this is not the way I often listen. But did you feel heard, even though the person didn't say anything? Did you feel really heard? I see everyone nodding their head, because we feel it energetically. And that is very deeply what this practice is. It's an energetic field. And that is not just talking woo-woo talk. There's a lot of research that has documented how that truly is happening. We are radiating and receiving energy, and we're creating this field between us. So I'm aware of what's going on in me. I'm being present to what's going on with you, and I'm tending to what's going on between us. Thomas Hübl calls that transparent communication. All of those channels, it's a lot, but it makes me excited for every conversation when I remember to do it in this beautiful way. So we call this practice keeping our hands, as the listener, keeping our hands off the steering wheel. That as soon as I say something like, I know what you mean, or that happened to me, or what about this, whose hands are then on the steering wheel? That means I am dictating where you're going to go next. And really only you know. And you may be surprised. Were any of you a little surprised of where you ended up in your 3 minutes? It's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize, because you had that space, that beautiful space. So that's the essence of compassionate listening. I'm going to share a favorite quote and then send you off to your breaks, to your body needs. Okay. This is from Henri Nouwen, a wonderful theologian. Some of you may know. I was very happy to get to know his life and his work. To listen is very hard because it asks of us so much interior stability that we no longer need to prove ourselves by speeches, arguments, statements, or declarations. True listeners no longer have an inner need to make their presence known. They are free to receive, to welcome, to accept. Listening is much more than allowing another to talk while waiting for a chance to respond. Listening is paying full attention to others and welcoming them into our very beings. The beauty of listening is that those who are listened to start feeling accepted, start taking their words more seriously, and discovering their own true selves. Listening is a form of spiritual hospitality by which you invite strangers to become friends, to get to know their inner selves more fully, and even to dare to be silent with you. But sometimes, even when we intend, it's hard to listen, isn't it? So that's what our next practice, cultivate compassion, develop the fair witness. Oh my goodness, I realize I'm not listening. I am so triggered, right? How many of you ever get activated that way? Yeah, we're struggling in our community around the word triggered because for some people it is a trigger word. So if I am activating anyone by the use of that, let me know and I'll try to be more careful, but I'm just so used to thinking about it and calling it my triggers. And I think that's what's in my handouts because I'm going to share my screen for a minute. Triggers or activation. So how many of you ever get triggered? Like every day, like every hour, especially these days? Absolutely. We have felt out of our comfort zone and then we don't come from our strengths and our core and we feel really off balance. It's like we get triggered and then we become, oh my goodness, I just forgot his name. Well, who is that?
The Hulk.
The Hulk. Thank you. The Hulk within appears, right? And our physiology is such that if we get to that point, we are not able to be compassionate. We're not able to listen. We are not even able to access our prefrontal cortex. So it's very important work that we learn to notice for ourselves and each other. Because let's say, imagine there's like these invisible landmines out there and you're just innocently walking along, but you do something that happens to be one of my triggers and you didn't even know. Hopefully I see it coming. So for me, it could be like you talk about something you're doing with another friend and I feel left out and it had nothing to do with me, but that's my trigger, right? Or you went into a lecture mode, or I'm feeling time pressured, or you say the word whatever. You know, for me, that happens to be a real trigger word, but it's invisible. So I need to learn to recognize my own. We need to become experts on our own triggers. So it took me a while. Like I used to co-facilitate with my dear friend Andrea, and she loves to cook, and she would talk about these great meals she was creating. And I could feel my poor little heart just kind of get shut down. And I really had to reflect, why is that? And I realized, oh, because it's so important to me to be included and feel connected. And I wasn't. I was feeling like you left me out, which of course was not what it was about. But that was how it impacted me. So remember, intention and impact are different things. Or why do I just get really shut down if somebody starts to give a whole little lecture about something. And I'm sure it was, I grew up with my dad, Big Al, who did that a lot. And there was no space for me. And I believe in co-creation and contribution and dialogue. So that's why it's such a trigger for me. And time pressure. I need flexibility, possibility. I don't like, it feels like a straitjacket. So the more I've learned to study these things and see them coming, I can manage them a lot better. I see it coming sooner, and I can start to just calm myself a lot sooner. So one key part of becoming a compassionate listener is to become an expert on this activation. So that means you need to be in relationship to your body, because that's what knows that you're triggered. Your mind might not even realize it, but it's there in your body. So just think for a moment for yourself. When you get activated, whatever your trigger points are, what are some of your earliest warning signs? Beautiful. So these are so important to become aware of, and the state of your mind. What's going on in your mind is, does it just get blank or start racing? Or I know for me, as soon as I start thinking, what an idiot. I mean, that is not me in my usual centered state. So if I'm starting to think that, I know I am very activated. Emotions, are you angry? Are you sad? Are you scared? That's often beneath it. But we don't necessarily recognize that it's fear. But when we have that body sensation, we can realize that's what it is. And even at a spirit level, that maybe that was, what was it that was just said? It's that that sense of distancing, like I'm all alone. I don't belong. I'm not part of the web of life. I have a little soundtrack, this old song, no one here can love or understand me. Oh, what hard luck stories they all hand me. I just go into this sad, poor me little space, contracting. So a very important part of our compassionate listening work is for you to become an expert. And in fact, we encourage people to journal, actually have a, in the ideal world, and it's a good excuse to go buy one of those cute little journals. Each day you could have on one side triggers, like I'm going to think through my day. What were all the points when I didn't feel open-hearted and connected and strong-hearted? And let's notice those. And what was it that was going on? And what can I learn about that? We do more work at finding our triggers, and judgments are such teachers about what really matters to us. So I really study those so I can recognize them earlier, the earliest warning signs, so I can pause and breathe. Or we're going to talk in a minute about strategies, right? And the other page in your journal could be gratitude and appreciation, because that's the antidote, right? All the things I could be joyful for today, and notice and be grateful for, and be specific with those. Not like, I had such a nice walk, but no, oh, I just enjoyed the feeling of my body being able to walk up and down hills without pain. I mean, that is really appreciating the walk, right? So is that making sense? Becoming an expert, and it's very much somatic in your body, mind, your heart, body, mind. So let's talk about, how do you de-trigger? How do you soothe and calm yourself? Because we also want a full palette.
Never be.
So let's first think of the things that you might do right then at that moment. Oh, I'm just noticing Annie saying, feeling time pushed. Yeah, for me, that the pressure Oh, I feel like I'm going in this narrowing cave. I really get that, Annie. I feel that too. So let's now just imagine we're going to take care of ourselves. So first in the moment. So it's the very moment when it's happening. I want you to each, don't send yet, but I want each of you to write down in the chat before you send, because we're going to all send at the same time. What's your best strategy in that moment that helps you soothe, calm, recenter, reground? So we're going to get a treasure trove. So type it in the chat. And in a moment, I'll say send, and then we'll get to see what everybody says. Okay. So your favorite in that very moment strategy.
Breathe deeply. Tanya says, feel into my feet. And there's a sense that, this is hard to come up with. Annie says, I'm unsure. I need to identify that.
Yeah, well, good. That's why we're going to learn. From
Yeah,
each other.
yeah. Jessica says, I calm myself in the moment by breathing deeply. I might even close my, I'm going to guess that's eyes, to block out what's going on. Ask myself, Judy, are you tired, hungry, thirsty?
Oh, I love that. Like we don't take a child on any field trip without there being well toileted and rested and snacks, right? Well, we are
Yes.
really not any different. So that word hangry. You heard that when you're hungry, you get angry. Good. All right. Thanks. Keep going.
Yeah. Deep breaths. Focus on my heart. Again, take a deep breath. A reminder that this person is just as valuable as I am, and I don't need to control their perspective or action. Oh, wow. Yes.
So it's really good to have a phrase like that, like a mantra. I love that.
Yeah. Ask for a timeout.
Yeah.
Try to remember why I am there. Breathe deep and slow. Look from the outside. Acknowledge and take deep breaths. Deep breath. It sounds like breath is just a common movement for us in this, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Focus on my sense.
Excellent.
Again, breathing. Halt. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Getting back to, that same thing that Judy was pointing out. Of assessing.
Great. Thank you, Jackie, and thank you everyone for sharing your wisdom. And we need to cultivate these practices. And if you feel like I don't have too many, well, here's a list. Ask friends and read some books, and do some practices. But a mantra can be anything. It can be, I am safe. That helps me a lot. I belong here. That helps me a lot. This too shall pass. So then there's the aftermath, like something has happened. It's not in this very moment that you have to deal with it, but it can just be like a toxic spill, right? How do you get yourself back to your heart, back to that beautiful core essence in the aftermath? So this could be later that day, that night, the days. So again, just take a moment to write what's your favorite strategy, and everyone will write, and then we'll have another little treasure trove. Although time is running short, it's always, but I'm going to breathe and not feel the pressure of time and feel spacious in this moment, because here we are. I see a lot of exercise, meditation.
Meditate.
Great, keep going, Jackie.
Pray and assess, why did I do or say that? Think about what happened. Remind myself what is real. Take a warm shower. Just remember we're here to love. Karen says, I visualize a cliff that I'm approaching and I consciously turn around and walk the other way.
Wow.
Wow. Qigong, Eden energy medicine, walking, grounding outside, get up and move. Practice self-compassion, maybe the exercise of holding myself as a baby.
I thought about that.
Beautiful.
Take a walk or listen to music. Think of a gratitude I feel.
Wonderful. So this is just a beginning. I wish we had lots of time to develop more. But you can see we can share with each other, and what works for you. Wow, that could really work for me. I love the visualization. That's a new one for me. That cliff. Nope, I'm going to choose a different way. In fact, sometimes that's one that I have. When my son was very small, my husband was really sick, and I wouldn't hear him. So it'd be like, mommy, mommy, mommy. And my ear flaps were down, they used to say. And so I taught him to just put his sweet little hands here. And then I would be present to him. So that is a sensation I have in my body. So I can imagine doing that to myself. Like, I have a better way. No, that's like turning that cliff. So that feels so sweet. You might even try that right now. Put your hands and just imagine loving little hands right there on your face. Isn't that sweet? Feels so good. Touch is so important. Yeah, get a hug. Well, that might be hard right now with the pandemic, but when it's possible, hugs are really good. Holding hands is really good. So cultivate your learning of your triggers and your triggering strategies. Okay. So we have time now for one last very important exercise we're going to do to see when we put some of these things together, or when we offer a listening session, how do we, because we don't always just listen in silence, although frankly, that's the very best, that it's that energetic presence. But sometimes we do want to reflect back to the person what we've heard. It helps build more connection, and it's in service of the speaker. So we're going to learn there's different levels to the story. So one level we'll listen to are the facts, just the facts. One will be the feelings. We're not going to do nonverbals today, but that's something to pay attention to. And I think a special part of compassionate listening is when we listen at the deepest level for the values. What is it really underneath? And then we'll offer appreciation. So let's just talk a little bit more what we mean about each of these. So fact, this is the speaker's facts. It's not fact check. It doesn't, we're not going to argue with them about whether it's true or a fact. It's their facts, just the headlines. So you don't need to remember all the details. What you think are the key points, what's most important to them. So when we reflect that back, they feel like we really got it, okay? Now this is really tricky, and some of you may stumble, and it'll be a wonderful learning opportunity if you do, because it's easy to slip into interpretation and judging and analyzing, but that's not what we're doing. We're gonna try to just listen for the speaker's facts and share back the headlines. And so when you do that, we'll ask, since we're doing it in this group style, we'll ask you to each just offer one fact that you thought was really key. So we'll go through the 5 of you, and then we can go back if something got left out. So instead of you sharing all the facts you heard, you'll just choose one. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the other thing is we're offering everything as a gift. So we sort of pause to get confirmation. And if Jackie, is going to go along with it, yep, maybe she'll have to clarify or add, or she might say, no, that's not what I meant. Might be what you heard. Okay. And we will not argue, right? Because we're doing it as a gift for her. And you might think that's funny, but believe me, it can happen. In fact, well, that's a story I won't go into now, but it's a funny story. Okay. The feelings. How do we know someone's feelings? Now, if she says, I was really angry, it's not only a feeling, it's a fact that she felt she was angry, right? But we will be interpreting. It is true. So it's a guess. And if you have that packet that I sent in advance, and don't worry if you don't, and don't worry if it's not nearby, there's a whole vocabulary of feelings, and it can be helpful to help get the specific flavor of the feeling. But I'm sure we'll all do fine without that list. There's the basic kind of the glad, happy ones, the sad ones, the mad, angry ones, and the scared, afraid ones, right? So we'll offer it. It seemed you felt angry. And then we'll wait for the confirmation, because she might say, no, I wasn't angry. I was frustrated. And you know what? That is a real gift. So the goal here is not to say, oh, I'm such a good, compassionate listener. I got it all right. No, I'm offering a gift. And when she realizes that doesn't quite fit, that helps her realize it's this. Sometimes we know what it is by knowing what it's not. So we're just guessing, getting their confirmation. So we'll really go slow, and each of you will just offer one feeling that you feel might have been there. Don't go into a whole big story of how you came to that. That's more about you and takes us away from the person we're listening to. Okay. And then this final level, whoops, we're not going to do the nonverbals today. We sometimes when we have more time, we do, but and it's so hard on Zoom. So this is the very, I think, magical level. What are values? What are our values? And let's really listen for those underneath. So values are always positive. I think of them as a source of energy beneath why this is even a story that has an impact for me. It's what I really care about. And maybe it's that longing to go back to wholeness. What will repair and bring us back to that interbeing, that perfect world of shalom, of wholeness. So what are the values? And not, there's a lot, we talk about family values. Those are all sort of strategies beneath that, like family, care, connection, community, empathy. Here, there's just some listed here. And again, in your packet, there's a whole list. Let's just take a minute and each of you think about, and you could put it in the chat if you like, what is a key core value for you? Like if you would dedicate your life, you would even sacrifice your life for certain values. What are those values for you? So again, this is a way we even compassionately listen to ourselves, and we do a lot of work of this in some of our other exercises, where we start to realize, oh, what is this really about? It's that value of mine. So this group, this last group, will listen for those values. And again, offer it as a gift. It seems you value, love, tolerance, whatever it is you've found. And again, try to resist going through a whole explanation of what made you think that. Just offer it as a gift, and Jackie will see if it resonates or not. Okay. I think that, oh, yeah, so that's how we're going to do it. And I just want to remind you, this is what compassionate listening is not. No fixing. It's not problem solving. It's not judging, and it's not interpreting. It's just being with and reflecting, like still water totally reflects the image. Okay. Yeah, so we are at our closing time. I will send a follow-up email that will have some of those materials and some links. If you'd like to continue your work, we have I know I think in March, I'll be offering a 5-session intro, an intensive intro. So we go over a lot of what we've done today much more spaciously and deeply. And there's many more exercises we do to cultivate all of those practices. And you can imagine if we were able to come back now together, this beautiful group and community we're starting to build here, by the 5th time, we just feel really connected. It can be a very powerful way to help you on this journey of developing skills and practices. Yes, deep gratitude for all of you for coming and for this beautiful practice that it has been my joy and privilege to be delving into and helping to shape and transmit for, I don't know, I think it's 30 years now. So it gives my heart such hope to know we can do this when we come together. This is what we're built for, our hearts as human beings, to come together, to hold one another, to be spiritual hosts to one another, open the space. And our hearts are just longing for this expansion to be clear and strong and courageous and held. So thank you all so very much. And I hope I'll see you again. You'd always be welcomed in our community of compassionate listeners.